welcome to SAE Tomorrow Today Unplugged. I'm your host, Grayson Brulte. Today's topic is batteries in the battery market. There's a lot of uncertainty in the battery market. There's a lot of questions being asked in the battery market. So we decided to do some research and we're going to post a series of questions to you today. And if you're interested, please send an email to podcast@sae.org. That's podcast@sae.org with your thoughts on what questions we're about to propose to you today. The battery market is full of uncertainty, and that uncertainty is only projected to grow with the passing and signing of the big, beautiful bill by President Trump that will end the $7,500 tax credit on new electric vehicle sales and leases, as well as a $4,000 tax credit for used EVs on September 30th. All signs point to the bill passing and the president signing it. We'll see what happens. We're recording this on the last day of June. No certainty yet, but perhaps in July there will be certainty and the bill will be signed. We'll see what happens. If the EV tax credit indeed does go away, what happens? Do EV sales slow down dramatically? Or do they hold steady? If we look at the latest data from Cox Automotive, new EV sales declined by 5.9% month over month to 100,495 units in April 2025. Come October, do we see a further decline in new EV sales? I ask that because certain elected officials want the battery tax credits to end for electric vehicles on September 30th. While new EV sales declined in April, used EV sales increased 14.4% month over month to 38,763 vehicles. Is this a sign of things to come? Will consumers trade down and will they purchase used electric vehicles instead of new electric vehicles because they are more affordable? Because we ask this because consumers today are facing economic uncertainty. We are in a high interest rate environment. Could that further accelerate the shift to used EV sales? Even though that $4,000 tax credit for used EVs will be going away? Or do consumers opt to return to gas-powered vehicles? Or do they go to diesel? Perhaps they explore hydrogen? Or do they simply hold on to their vehicles longer? It's another question I'd love to get your opinion on. Because today, the average U.S. consumer owns their vehicle 8.4 years. But here's an interesting fact in this. When you break out EVs from the data, the average consumer only owns those vehicles 3.6 years. Why? Why do you think that is? That's less than half the time they own a traditional internal combustion engine. Is it because of the fear that the battery could degrade? Or is it simply because the tax credits make upgrading to a new EV more affordable and too enticing? If the tax credits go away, do we see this number increase from 3.6 years to perhaps 4.2 years, 5.5 years? Because we'll have to wait and see. Because if the September 30th deadline becomes law, do we happen to see a pull forward effect where consumers buy new EVs before the tax credit ends with the goal of keeping that vehicle for a long time? Well, let's look at the market. When the president announced tariffs were coming, what did we see in consumer goods? We saw a huge pull forward effect where consumers rushed out to buy before tariffs. Will the same thing happen with electric vehicles? Will consumers rush out to buy a new EV before the tax credit goes away? That's another question for you to ask, because at this point in time, I'll say it very frankly to you, there are simply more questions than answers in the EV market. And we most likely won't get any real data from Cox Automotive, the standard bearer, until November on what the true impact on those federal EV tax credits will be. Now, here's another question for you. What if there was little to no change in the market for EV sales? What if EVs continue to sell at historical normal levels? Then what happens? How does the market react? How do politicians react? Let's not forget, how do traditional auto manufacturers react? What will they do? Will they sit here and question everything? I don't know. We ask you, what do they do? That's the vehicle side. Now, let's shift to the other side. Let's shift to the manufacturing and factory side. What do you think is going to happen to the battery factories in the United States during, let's call this the in-between period of the tax credit ending and the market getting data? As I said earlier, we most likely will not get that data until November 2025. And is that enough data? That's another question. Here's another one for you. We're full of questions today. Will companies stop investing in building battery plants? And will they put their plans on hold until they get certainty in the market to understand what the consumer demand will be and what the impact of the tax credits going away? We'll see. But we are starting to get a little bit of data. Not enough data to make a decision, but we're starting to get data. We're starting to see signs of a coming pause is coming in the market as these subsidies are going away. According to the Washington Post, in the first 3 months of 2025, companies collectively canceled $6 billion. That's with a B, not an M. $6 billion in battery manufacturing. Unfortunately, that's a record. That's right. The first 3 months of 2025, companies canceled $6 billion in battery manufacturing. A record. Is this a sign of things to come? Could this number grow as the big, beautiful bill will eliminate the tax credit for producing battery components? If you look at the data from the Washington Post, it sure looks that way. And if we start to look at employment, we're starting to see signs in the market that layoffs are coming. In Windsor, Canada, right across the river from Detroit, Nexstar EV battery plant, a $5 billion, that's right, a $5 billion joint venture between automaker Stellantis and the South Korean battery maker LG Energy Solution, has started laying off workers at the plant unexpectedly and rapidly. Why? Is this a sign of things to come? Will this be more widespread? Or is this simply an isolated incident at this one factory? Keep in mind, this factory was not operational yet. The factory was being built, and they're having the layoffs and the pause. It's something to watch. We don't know what caused this, but we are saying that this is a sign, and we need to look for a pattern to see if this happens at more battery plants across the United States and Canada. When we look for signs in the market, there's another thing that we're also watching in the battery market, and we're looking for signs, and that is refining capacity. Without the ability to refine rare earths into batteries, to make the batteries, we don't have batteries. So we have to watch that market as well. The battery market's complicated. There's lots of pieces in there, and that's what we're trying to do in this SAE Tomorrow Today Unplugged, is to highlight and give you all of these potential things to watch for in the market and to come to your own conclusions of where you view this market going. Today, according to Goldman Sachs, good research from Goldman, 92% of refining and processing rare earths into metals takes place in China. This creates a risk in the market, as all roads for batteries go through China. When one company, one country, one region controls the majority of the market, you have to go through that market. So China right now, 92% of refining and processing of rare earth metals goes through China. Well, how do you summarize that? Very simply. The entire global electric vehicle industry runs through China with 92% of the capacity. That's a risk. If you want to use a technical term, it's a choke point in the market. It's something that perhaps has to be de-risked, and perhaps you are starting to see auto manufacturers look for capabilities and to move away to add diversification into the market. But let's take a step back. How did China begin to control 92% of this market? Did they set out to own this market? Did they set out to want to do this? Or did they simply see an opportunity in the market? Well, wait till you hear this. They saw an opportunity. Because the last time the United States built a rare earth refinery in the U.S. was 1952 at Mountain Pass in California. So you might be sitting here thinking, well, how did China get to 92% and what happened between 1952 and today? Well, I'm going to tell you. From that time up until the 1980s, the United States was the largest refiner and processor of rare earth metals. That's right. From 1952 to 1980, the United States was the largest refiner and processor of rare earth metals. Now you may wonder, what happened? Why did the United States cease to refine rare earth metals? This is a really interesting history lesson here for you. We all heard, we watched the news, the fat thumb did something, sent the stock market up, down, the volatility, the VIX up to 30-60. Well, something similar happened here. In 1980, that's right, 1980, a misclassification of rare earths by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the International Regulatory Agency placed rare earth mining under the same regulations as mining thorium, a radioactive element that drops out when processing heavy rare earth minerals like matas. That's nuclear, okay? So then what happened? You guessed it. That's right. You totally guessed it. Mountain Pass stopped refining rare earths. And then what happened? China stepped in to fill the void and started investing dramatically for the processing and refining of rare earth metals. That is a very short-winded way to say that is how China got to 92% of the market share of refining and processing of rare earths into metals. Now, here's another question. What do you think would have happened if the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and the International Regulatory Agency never misclassified rare earths? Would the United States still be the leader in refining and processing rare earths into metals? That's for you to answer. I'll ask this. If the United States were still the leader in refining and processing rare earths into metals, would the politics around batteries and electric vehicles be different? That's something to ponder. That's something to think on. I'm not going to give an opinion. We would love your opinion. Now let's ask ourselves the next question. Should the United States once again start investing in the refining and processing of rare earths into metals? We'd love to know what you think. Let us know by sending an email to podcast@sae.org. That is podcast@sae.org. There's a lot of complicated questions we asked. We'd love to get your opinions and your thoughts because that helps inform the conversation and moves things forward. But no matter where all of this goes, no matter how wonderful your feedback is, no matter where the market goes, we do know one thing, and that we can all agree to one thing. There is a lot of uncertainty in the market, and that at the earliest, we potentially could have certainty of where things are going is November, when we get the latest Cox Automotive data after the September 30th deadline, if that is indeed the deadline. But what will the November Cox Automotive data tell us? Will the data be too premature to give us a pattern? Will it be too premature to offer any bit of insights? We don't know. Or will we have to wait several more quarters to get more data, pushing us potentially into April of May of 2026 until we can see where things are going? And if that did happen, it extends the in-between period, if you want to call it the pause period, the in-between period. Where does the global OEMs go? Do they continue to invest, or do they wait until they have certainty in the data? Anything's possible, but what we do know is that the battery market is currently in a state of flux. Which way it goes is anyone's guess. What's your guess? Let us know. Send us an email. Again, it's podcast@sae.org, podcast@sae.org. We would love to hear from you. We would love your thoughts, your insights into this very, very important topic. Today is tomorrow. Tomorrow is today. The future is a healthy and certain battery market.
SAE International makes no representations as to the accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. The information and opinions are for general information only. SAE International does not endorse, approve, recommend, or certify any information, product, process, service, or organization presented or mentioned in this podcast.